Good morning, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, tributes are pouring in for the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg as the fight begins over replacing her on the Supreme Court. We have full coverage ahead. Also ahead, Tropical Storm Beta is taking aim at Texas. Waves are already picking up along the coast and bringing potentially dangerous storm surge. People are bracing for what could be life-threatening flash floods as well. Ginger Z is tracking the latest. And Sweep Creek, the hit comedy, has some new records and bragging rights after the virtual Emmys last night. All of the stars took home a trophy, plus Zendaya's historic win, and the Friends reunion that took us all by surprise. We have all of the highlights from Hollywood's unprecedented night at the Emmys. But we begin with the life and legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Outside the Supreme Court, a memorial is growing for the late justice, and inside her chair is draped in black, a tradition dating back at least as far as 1873. In her home state of New York, landmarks were lit up in blue in her honor, the color of justice, and her favorite color. With her death so close to Election Day, there's also a fight now to fill her seat, and that is front and center in the presidential race. Senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce has the latest.
This morning, President Trump is narrowing his choice, vowing to pick a woman to fill Justice Ginsburg's seat on the Supreme Court.
I will be putting forth a nominee next week. It will be a woman, a very talented, very brilliant woman.
Trump supporters making it clear they want him to move full steam ahead.
We're going to fill the seat. I love that chair.
The president, we've learned, is already in talks with Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who is promising President Trump's nominee will receive a vote on the floor of the United States Senate. It's a reversal from McConnell's position in 2016.
Let's let the American people decide.
He famously refused to even consider President Obama's pick to fill Justice Scalia's seat after he died in February of the election year. But McConnell insists this situation is different since Republicans now control both the Senate and the White House. Critics say it smacks of hypocrisy. Over the weekend, protesters gathering outside the Republican leader's house. But Democrats have very little power here. Their best hope to try and pressure a handful of key Republicans to break ranks. Joe Biden Sunday with a direct appeal.
Uphold your constitutional duty, your conscience. Let the people speak. Cool the flames that have been engulfing our country.
Now, 4 Republicans would have to break with their party and side with Democrats to oppose a confirmation. And already we have heard from 2 of them, Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. They both say that this decision should be up to the next president. Diane.
All right, Mary Bruce in Washington for us. Thanks, Mary. And Justice Ginsburg had a huge impact, not just on the court, but American life in general. She was a trailblazer from the beginning of her legal career and more recently became a cultural icon. Tributes are pouring in for her this morning from all across the country. Terry Moran has more on her life and legacy.
Inside the Supreme Court this morning, Justice Ginsburg's seat on the bench draped in black and a black drape hanging over the courtroom doors as the makeshift memorial outside grows and the tributes continue, including this from former President Bill Clinton, who appointed Ginsburg to the High Court in 1993.
In a time where people are so cynical, Ruth Ginsburg symbolizes everything that's best about America.
And President Trump responding to reporters minutes after a rally Friday in Minnesota, offering his praise for a justice who openly scorned him.
Whether you agreed or not, she was an amazing woman who led an amazing life.
Ruth Ginsburg's life was indeed astonishing. Barely 5 feet tall, she became a giant of American law and American life through the sheer force of her intellect and her determination.
All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks.
She was just the second woman named to the Supreme Court. Her path to the highest court in the land, not an easy one. A brilliant law student, first at Harvard, then at Columbia, she faced discrimination after graduating in 1959.
She was tied for first in her class, and the big New York City law firms just weren't hiring women.
So she turned to civil rights law and argued and won 5 cases at the Supreme Court that revolutionized the law for women in America before taking her spot on the high court bench in 1993.
The increasingly full use of the talent of all of this nation's people holds large promise for the future. But we could not have come to this point, and I surely would not be in this room today without the determined efforts of men and women who kept dreams alive, dreams of equal citizenship in the days when few would listen.
In her quarter century as a justice, Ginsburg became a leader of the liberal wing on the court with powerful rulings on discrimination, voting rights, and abortion.
This is something central to a woman's life, to her dignity. It's a decision that she must make for herself.
She formed an unlikely close friendship with a strong opponent, Justice Antonin Scalia. And as the court shifted to the right, her fierce dissents inspired generations. The notorious RBG, she came to be known, a cultural icon unlike any other.
I am 84 years old, and everyone wants to take a picture with me.
She died Friday battling cancer, as she had for 2 decades. Her incomparable legacy was to give new, greater meaning to those words engraved right there on the Supreme Court itself. Equal justice under law.
And Terry Moran is with us now from the Supreme Court, as well as constitutional law professor from Cardozo Law, Deborah Pearlstein. Good morning to you both. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Diane.
Terry, I'll start with you. The president says that he plans to nominate Ginsburg's replacement quickly. We heard from Mary Bruce that Amy Coney Barrett is on the top of that short list. What do we know about her?
Well, she has all the qualifications that President Trump would be looking for. She is eminently qualified. She's very conservative, and she's young for a Supreme Court justice, 48 years old. That's a trifecta. She's really become, Amy Coney Barrett, a rock star among conservatives, especially Christian conservatives. She is a devout Catholic. She walks the walk of her faith. She's a person known to be very active in her community at Notre Dame, where she was a law professor. She has 7 children, including 2 adopted from Haiti, and a Down syndrome child. And when she was nominated to the Federal Appeals Court, she underwent a grilling from, California Senator Dianne Feinstein, who said to her, "I feel that the dogma is strong in you," that she was excessively Catholic, or that her faith was spilling into her legal opinions, was the implication from Senator Feinstein. That moment made her a rock star. Many Christian conservatives saw it as a kind of religious test, even a kind of persecution of people who believe that they have a right to exercise their faith even in the public square. So she is a lightning rod, and Donald Trump might like that, too. The fight might do him good in an election that right now he is trailing in.
And Terry, part of the reason this is turning into such a big debate is what happened in 2016. Can you quickly explain some of the context there and how this is expected to play out?
Well, as we've seen in Mary's piece, when Justice Scalia died 9 months before the election of 2016, Mitch McConnell said, nope, we aren't even going to have a hearing. No, Senator, no, that had never happened in the Senate. We are just going to shut it down, and there will be no nominee for President Obama because it was too close to an election. Well, here we are just 6 weeks, and McConnell saying we're going to have a vote on President Trump's nominee. The question is, can they do that? And the answer is yes, they can. Under the Constitution, it's perfectly legitimate. The Constitution says the president serves from noon on the 20th of January until noon on the 20th of January 4 years later, and the Congress noon on the 3rd of January until noon on the 3rd of January after the next congressional election. And so it is lawful and legitimate. The question is, should they? This is one of the things that Congresses in the past have tried to do, is keep this court out of the muck and mire of the ferocity of political mudslinging that happens in Washington. Those days are gone. This is a question of power now. The Republicans have it, and they will try to use it.
Deborah, what sticks out to you for some of the other names on this short list?
Well, so one of the names that's getting a lot of discussion this morning is Barbara Lagoa, who's also relatively young, a judge on the federal court in Florida. She seems to be a favorite of the Federalist Society and a favorite of some political constituencies on the conservative side as well, based on the political and electoral importance of Florida to the president's campaign for reelection. It really does seem to be setting up an interesting divide. Her her views on abortion and the social issues that are so important to a fraction of the conservative electorate are expected and understood to be conservative, but she's had much less of a judicial record on those cases than she has on sort of traditional libertarian concerns like the power of the administrative state, the rights of corporations, and issues of that nature. So there is an interesting dialogue that appears to be emerging, and dialogue is a nice word for it, I think, between different factions of the conservative and the Republican Party, worried about making sure that they're getting the kind of nominee that they want. They feel like they've been burned once or twice by Chief Justice Roberts, who did not decide in the way they wanted on some cases, including an important healthcare case, which is coming back before the court this coming term. And they feel even to some extent betrayed in one important case by Justice Gorsuch, one of President Trump's own nominees, on issues of the rights of lesbian, gay, transsexual, bisexual people. So they're worried about making sure they know exactly who they're getting in this pick. And that's important. It's always happens. But in this remarkable political climate and really fraught political climate, delay tends to advantage the opponents who think that the president should, as Terry was just pointing out, not move forward at risk of really exacerbating what is already a deeply, deeply divided electorate in a moment when the election is already ongoing, right? Voting is underway in Virginia.
It's interesting to see how big politics has become such a big part of a position that is explicitly supposed to not involve politics at all. But Deborah, I'm curious to know what issues you think that will come before the Supreme Court this fall could have different outcomes because the bench isn't full.
So there are two that jump out immediately. The court is slated to hear in oral arguments an enormously consequential case about the constitutionality of the ACA, what is commonly known as Obamacare, right? And this law, this federal law, among other things, ensures that people can't be kicked off of their private insurance or denied private health insurance coverage as a result of pre-existing conditions. The Trump administration has taken the position throughout this litigation and is taking it in front of the Supreme Court in this case that the entire law, the entire ACA must be struck down as unconstitutional, and with it would go protection for pre-existing conditions. That is a case in which Justice Ginsburg, her vote was almost certain to be in upholding the law, the constitutionality of the law. Now, I think the outcome of that particular case, to be argued right after the November 3rd vote, very much in question. The other major set of cases that may be before the court in the next 3-6 months, up to and including January 20th, are some fraction, one or more, of the already 300 plus cases that are pending in the lower courts to do with the election. Now, some of these cases are about voting procedures surrounding the absentee balloting and other things that have become much more important in light of the pandemic and the need to protect voter safety under these circumstances. Others of these cases involve longer-term questions about voter suppression and voting rights and electoral fairness. But nonetheless, these cases are already moving their way through the district courts, the circuit courts, and it seems hard to imagine that at least one of them won't make their way at least to a petition for review before the Supreme Court before this is all over. And that especially heightens the need to ensure that the political machinations surrounding Supreme Court nominations are kept separate, or as separate as possible, from the Supreme Court's work of deciding what the Constitution means. It's an argument that tends to favor waiting and not rushing to judgment on a disappointment.
And Terry, on a brighter note, I know that you covered Justice Ginsburg on the Supreme Court for many years. I'd love to leave with any favorite memories that stick out to you.
You know, Diane, she was just an enormous presence here. Her passing leaves a vacancy, and that word is so true in every sense. The black draped chair there's a vacancy in the heart of this institution. She was a formidable presence, as I say. No one was better prepared at oral argument, and you could hear it in her questions, which were both extremely tough and extremely courteous. And I remember one time 10, 15 years ago, even after one of her bouts with cancer, a procedure that she'd undergone. She actually stopped by the press room here, which is something that doesn't happen a lot. The justices keep their distance more or less, but she stopped by. She walked in, all 5 feet of her or so, and stood there, and we had kind of an awkward greeting of reporters who were there, and somebody said, "Justice Ginsburg, how are you feeling?" She paused for a moment. She was a woman who deployed silence to great effect, kind of gathering the moment to her, and then she said in that quiet voice that managed to combine both grace and steel, she said, "I'm not going anywhere." And we all laughed, and she didn't. So that's my memory of Justice Ginsburg, a strong woman who managed to combine that grace and strength in a really unique way, leaving her mark on the country.
That's for sure. The notorious RBG, Terry Moran and Professor Deborah Pearlstein, thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time. And now to the latest on the coronavirus. According to the COVID Tracking Project, nearly 29,000 people are currently hospitalized in the United States. That's the lowest number since June. But 3 states, Montana, Hawaii, and West Virginia, are setting new records for deaths. The U.S. as a whole is approaching a grim milestone of 200,000 deaths and just over 6.8 million confirmed cases nationwide. And now to the Gulf Coast, where Tropical Storm Beta is expected to make landfall in Texas in just a few hours. Waves there are already picking up and bringing dangerous storm surge. Ginger Z is tracking it all for us. Good morning, Ginger.
Diane, incredible that we are already into the Greek alphabet. Earliest we've ever done this, and we've only ever done that once before in Atlantic hurricane season back in 2005. But look at this. This is Highway 87, Bolivar Peninsula, ahead of Beta. So it's still out in the Gulf of Mexico, and they're seeing surge flooding. Texas Department of Transportation actually raised that road, Highway 87, by 2 feet and put the rocks in, and they're still seeing debris with a storm that far away. So it should make landfall later this afternoon or tonight by Matagorda Bay or so. But remember, the heaviest rain is often to the north and east. Well, this one just doesn't have a ton with it yet. Deal is, it's going to move slow, and you could see tornado threat today and tomorrow even, as it tracks very slowly Wednesday toward Houston. So like a Tuesday into Wednesday for the heaviest rain Houston, and it will still have some of those outer bands in that shield up there impacting Louisiana. So rain is probably going to be the staying power of Beta because it is just that slow, and the slow push of water along the coast. But 6 to 10 inches, and then it looks like 4 to 6 just clips Houston on the south side. But 2 to 4 inches, even if that falls very quickly, you can easily see flash flooding. So we're keeping an eye on Beta, but we also have to go to Teddy, which looks a whole lot healthier. And if you're in Bermuda, you say, uh-oh, well, it looks like it's going to pass just to the east. It got nudged away just by some upper air things going on. But the track takes it toward Canada. Yes, they're going to get in some of the action there. Looks like it'll only be a low by then, but still, they've got tropical storm watch up because it's going to push a lot of water and the waves, which we'll get along the east coast too. 7 to 13-foot waves. Coastal flood advisories include Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey. Just keep an eye on that, because if you're planning to go to the beach, this could be a rough week to do so. Rip currents danger will be high too, Diane.
All right, Ginger Z for us. Thanks, Ginger. To Hollywood now, where TV's biggest night was like nothing we have ever seen before. The 72nd Annual Emmy Awards went virtual for the first time because of the pandemic, but I'm still sure Will Gantz was screaming the whole time. He's got the highlights for us.
An Emmy Awards fitting of 2020.
I've been in prison because of Carol Baskin, you.
With no real audience.
I'm up here all alone. Just like prom night.
And definitely no germs.
Once all the germs have been burned off.
Okay, here we go.
Perfect.
The Emmys going live from more than 100 different locations.
We've been roommates since 1994, Jimmy.
But I
Hello.
thought that was, I had no idea.
Is this live TV?
Unbelievable.
And besties Reese and Carrie.
Oh, we're having a New Year's Eve party.
That's right.
Why?
Well, because we're ready for this year to be over.
But not before the winners were handed their Emmys live from the living room.
This is so freaking weird.
Regina King, one of several wins for Watchmen, wearing a shirt with Breonna Taylor's image on it, and her name on Uzo Aduba's shirt as the actress accepted her Emmy from home. But Rami Youssef sharing what happens when you lose live in the living room. The 2020 Emmy Awards made history in other ways. Zendaya becoming the youngest person ever to win Outstanding Actress in a Drama Series. And holy Emmy Awards.
Okay, calm down. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Breathe.
A sweep for the little comedy from Canada, becoming the first show ever to sweep all 4 acting categories. With 9 statues overall, it's also the most awarded comedy show in a single season ever.
It was a celebration of inclusivity, a castigation of homophobia, and a declaration of the power of love. So thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Academy. Thank you.
And Will Gans joins me now to break down some of those big moments. Will, do you have a voice left after last night?
I mean, I do have a voice left. There were tears shed. There was so much cheering. You know all about why. It was such an incredible night. Yeah.
Freaking out over your favorite little comedy from Canada. What, we're going to get to that, I'm sure. And I'm sure this is included in this answer, too. But what did you think were the big standout moments, the big highlights for you?
I mean, we're calling it Sweep Creek now, right? So that was definitely a favorite. But we have to celebrate the diversity. There was a record number of Black actors that were handed out trophies last night, thanks to shows like Watchmen and Euphoria. Zendaya became the youngest person ever to win. So that was super exciting. While there's obviously still a ton of work to be done when it comes to inclusivity and diversity in the Emmys, especially when it comes to the Latinx community. It was a really, really historic night for Black actors, which was something to celebrate for sure.
Well, and diversity and social justice were 2 big themes going into the show. How did you feel that that was on display last night?
Okay, well, we saw it literally when Regina King won her Best Actress in a Limited Series. She was wearing a shirt that had Breonna Taylor's name and image on it. Similarly, when Uzo Aduba picked up her Emmy Award, she had a shirt that said Breonna Taylor on it. And then we saw, you know, a lot of the winners using their speech to ask people to get out the vote. So it was a big moment for making political statements and statements, you know, that really mattered to some of these winners. Yeah.
And then what's usually the big focus is the red carpet fashion, but no red carpet last night. But there still was some fashion on display, even though people were home on their couches. What were your favorite looks there?
Yeah, that's Alex Borstein there in her PJs. She opted for definitely the comfier as opposed to the couture looks. But then we get our Tracy Ellis Rosses of the night, who went full glam. Shira Haas, I'm so excited to talk about this. So she wore Chanel Haute Couture. Her dress took 1,200 hours to make. 1,200 hours.
Oh my God,
that's crazy. She was nominated for Unorthodox, and
she's so great.
Yeah, she really stepped it up when it came to the fashion look.
And what did you wear for the night?
I wore this, but with a tie. But I figured for the morning after, I could relax a little bit, took the tie off. But yeah, this was my look for the evening.
So you haven't changed. Have you slept?
I have not slept. It's just too exciting for Sweep Creek. I couldn't sleep. How could I?
Well, we love having you. Whether you're well rested or not, you are the best. And thank you for giving us the lowdown.
Of course.
Congrats on
Sweep Creek.
Sweep Creek.
Yeah, that's what we're calling it these days.
I almost said it. All right, a couple more things to know before you go. Fire officials now say a wildfire near Los Angeles has scorched more than 103,000 acres, making it one of the largest in LA County history. The Bobcat fire has even threatened the famous Mount Wilson Observatory. Strong winds late last week caused that fire to nearly double in size, and at one point even creating a tornado of smoke. And New Yorkers are honoring the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, changing a 50th Street subway station into Ruth Street in her honor. Ginsburg was born in Brooklyn and attended Columbia Law School before working as a clerk for a Manhattan federal judge. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. We'll see you right back here at 11 a.m. Eastern. Stay with us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.